Currently our reservation is about 12,000 acres, 2 different states, Kansas and Nebraska, and 3 different counties. We were in a conventional commodity market operation for a number of years, and for many years I've seen a lot of dollars leave the reservation and in turn never coming back, and that's due to chasing the high yields that we've done in our previous model. So we completely changed our model now. We focus on the livestock, the microbiology of the soil structure, and we've seen tremendous value by doing that, and just the flourish of life. We've got several programs now. We've got a cover crop program that we're putting in multi-species after the cash crop is harvested, and then we'll let that cover crop grow up and get the biomass needed, and then we'll bring our cattle in for our adaptive grazing program, to where we'll be moving and grazing our animals across those cover crops. And then, a few days later, we'll bring our layer operation in after the cattle. And I like that because the chickens they're somewhat employees, just like the cattle as well. We can utilize them for things that they can actually speed up the benefits and some of the changes that you see out of a regenerative model. And just for instance, when the cattle comes in and, we've got the manure patties out there, flies are attracting to that, and the chickens will be utilized to, peck the larvae out, and we'll see a decrease in the flies that are affecting the cattle as well, and carrying, pink eye and those other diseases that we're seeing. It's been rewarding and challenging. There's been some hardships and some learning curves along the way, but, our journey transitioning from conventional ag into more of a regenerative approach, which is a holistic approach across our whole reservation. I think, one day we're going to be that helping hand that has been through all these challenges and struggles, that we can take that and be that helping hand to other producers here in the community.
Right now we're currently on the Bachman track, which is right next to the Schulenburg track. We acquired both of these properties from the Nature Conservatory, and this is properties that are really precious to us. We have medicinal plants and stuff here that we don't have any place on the reservation, or maybe even in America. So very important to us to keep it all natural and try not to do a lot of spraying unless it's really needed, doing the burns when we can, and trying to keep the invasive species out of here. Well, a tribal national park gives people more awareness, and it's just, there's not very many of them, and it's going to be managed and run by the tribe. So we will have full control over it. And in our tradition, you can gather, but you don't overgather. And there's a lot of people that want to overgather. They're here, because they will just take it all. And that's the thing we got to protect, to keep that from happening. If you manage the property right, you're going to have cleaner water, you're going to have more water, the springs will be flowing a lot better, and that's kind of our goal, is to make sure that the ecosystem is spot on.
Just kind of like when your father took you fishing, you always leave a place better than what you found it, and that's what our goal is these 12,000 acres that we have are ours, and that's all we have, and we can't pick up and move. So we've got to protect all of the natural resources that are available to us today, and make sure that those are held there for future generations to use.
I've always grown vegetables, just a home garden. And then I've been doing this. We're going to do the hydroponics and then the large hoop houses. We're just basically trying to supply fresh produce for the casino, for the elders. And then, like I said, these 2 greenhouses will produce stuff for all season. This is a 30 by 96 foot high tunnel. That is a 30 by 96 foot hydroponics house. And then we have one ordered identical to this one that's taking place for the 30 by 45. And then we're actually working on a 4th 30 by 96 that's going to go on the north side of that. So we are, for 3 months, we're growing pretty fast. plan is to have at least 5 full-time employees managing just the garden, vegetable, plus our orchard. We've got about 45 trees over in our high fenced area, and then we have also about 2 acres of vegetables out in the fields, and also about 1 acre and 2 acres of cantaloupe and watermelon patches. We got okra, we've got green beans, we've got snap peas, also tomatoes out there, just onions, lettuce, broccoli, cabbage. These are our heirloom. We have Romas, cherry, which kind of we're trying to learn the supply and demand, what the casino wants for salads, what they want for the elders, you know, and then we're working on getting certified with a refrigerator truck to start supplying the places. Everything in our high tunnels or out in the outdoor gardens is all started from seed. Everything's going to be organic. We're trying to completely stay organic. You know, like I said, we're using natural things to prevent the weeds, to prevent everything's pretty much manual labor on that, but like insect control, just natural things, so we're not introducing any insecticides, nothing like that. We haven't used any kind of powders or anything, and so far it's worked great. Keeping that out of your diet is the healthiest thing you can do, I think. I mean there's a large demand even in the surrounding small communities off the reservation are wanting organic, naturally grown, you know, produce. On the Three Sisters plot, that's just a native practice for, you know, you got your sweet corn. Well, we use sweet corn, but you can use your white or blue corn. You plant your beans at the base of that corn to use that as also a trellis, but the beans add the nitrogen to the ground to help the corn. And then you have your squash, which is for your weed suppression. So it works out great.
I mean, it's in our blood, it's in who we are, it's in our heritage, our culture. We were always farmers, and we've always grown all of the food that our people had needed. The biggest challenge that I've had was, you know, education, and that's me personally as well, because that's where I had to start, and I knew what our model was, and we had some issues that happened several years ago that kind of was the eye-opener for me. So I had to take a step back and look outside of the box and re-educate not only myself but the tribal council here, the farm employees, and also the membership as a whole, and you know the community members as well.
Well, when we have big rainfall, so one time we had like 5 inches in an hour or something, the whole reservation was an island for a while, and it eroded like you wouldn't believe. All the trees on the side of the road on the glacial bluffs here, they were in the center of the road. They just came down the banks. So the soil moves pretty easily if you don't have enough grass and trees around.
CERNA is the acronym for the Center of Excellence in Regenerative Native Agriculture. It is a USDA Climate Smart Commodity Program. The tribe received approximately $5 million that we'll be utilizing over a 5-year period to incentivize the producers and take some of the risk out and pay for some of the tools and the testing and the data collection that we can collect during that time to make better sound decisions amongst the farming operations. And you know, there at last minute before submission, I wanted to make sure that we focused on the Missouri River corridor, because there's a lot of runoff and a lot of sediment that's coming off of these acres that's in that corridor valley. And if we can start implementing some of these practices through CERNA, we can hopefully see some of our topsoil stay in place. You will be able to infiltrate more water. And, you know, I think by focusing on the Missouri River corridor, we're going to start seeing some pretty impactful things that's happened by just changing the way we do things. Everything is just increased tremendously, you know, from the birds to the insects, and you know we have pollinator plots around all of our row crop fields now, and that is a proactive approach to bring the beneficial insects here to take care of the pest instead of calling upon the company to come out and spray the pesticide, which is ultimately hurting not only the land, but the environment as a whole and us as human beings.
The tribe hired me as a beekeeper originally about 8 years ago to just take care of bees out here for pollination. They just wanted for pollination. Well, I had already worked in the honey industry before, selling, bottling, manufacturing, and all that. So I brought it to the council, and they decided to take the next step and build a business, the Ioway Bee Farm. We started approximately 6 years ago. I've been here for 8. And then in 2019, I believe, we actually opened our website. Got 4 employees that work for me, and we got close to 100 hives out here. And we produce a lot of finished product out here too as well. We also use the wax for our lotion bars, our bee bombs. We use beeswax and our lip balms. And then of course we sell a heck out of candles as well, beeswax candles. So pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. The genetically modified plants that people plant. That's really harmful for the bees and interrupts their brood cycle. A little bit of poison doesn't kill bees, so they take it back to the hive, they feed it to the queen and the babies, they get sick, they never develop, they never hatch. And then you have colony collapse. So the tribe has actually been planting non-GMO crops, hasn't been spraying, just where necessary, and I've actually seen an increase in my numbers because of that, and less of them dying. So it's like the canary in a coal mine. These bees are telling us how our environment is. The beehives don't make it, then they're getting sick, and it's because of the herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides. So we need to pay attention.
Bojo, my name's Keesis Charges at Them Pots. Keesis is my Potawatomi name, and then my Bokoje name is Mangrunje, which my Potawatomi name Keesis means sun, the one in the sky, and then Mangrunje means that bear that splits the pipe stem. That's who I am. The way I see it, we're supposed to be indigenous, and bees, they're from overseas. And so like our job as beekeepers, indigenous beekeepers, should be to help out these ones because they do a good job, but also what can we do to help all the native pollinators, because they're the ones that do a lot of the work. Honeybees, I think they only do about 15 to 20% of the pollination needs here in the United States, and the rest of it's all done by native pollinators. Bumblebees, single dot, 2 dot, rust belt bees, butterflies, moths, wasps, hummingbirds, ants.
If we can make this a natural landscape, once again, we can be a good example to the rest of the USA. To show people what a real natural landscape looks like, being able to, eat the rabbits or stuff like that, knowing that there's no poisons, the deers, everything, because we got rid of all the chemicals. So if we can make everything natural again, I think there'll be less cancer, and you won't have all the problems that we do now.
The support's amazing that they've provided for us, the tribe has, with Tim and getting everything rolling. So far, everything we've kind of wanted, we're going for it.
One of the biggest things in this life that we live today, everything's so busy. There's so many things that's happening that we don't take enough time to slow down and look at the small things in life. And that's who we are and who we were years and years ago, is we watched for the signs of spring, and we watched for the signs of planting. And when we did plant, other things that happened, we paid attention to those things, and going back to what our ancestors, who they were and what they believed in, is what we're recreating today, and trying to protect everything here as far as the life, the soil, the water, the food, and then the diseases as well. So in order for us to progress ahead, we've got to sometimes go backwards and take a look at some of our old ways and reintroduce those in today's modern life to get back life as a whole, family, community, food, and overall health and well-being of that community.